Hello and welcome to Chem100. We are going to start this course by kind of going through how you can be successful in a course, any course, whether it's chemistry, whether it's sociology, whether it's a math course. These are hopefully going to be helpful tips so that you're successful. I will mention things that are specific to chemistry courses as well, because presumably a lot of you are going to go on and take another chemistry course. So the syllabus. When your instructor gives you a syllabus, this is a very important document. A lot of instructors will give you a paper syllabus, or many of them will post them on D2L. It's important to read through the syllabus. I know a lot of you might fall asleep reading the syllabus, but there are important things in the syllabus, like what happens if I can't make an exam, or how do I best contact the instructor. These type of things can be very helpful, especially for your success in this course. So for me, the best way to contact me is via my email address. So best way to, let me use a different pen. My email address is mclark31@jccc.edu. Okay. The other thing that you will find on a syllabus is the office hours. So it depends. Every instructor has different office hours. My office hours vary each semester, so I'm not going to write them out specifically on this lecture. But I will write down office hours. What are office hours? Office hours are pretty much a time when you can have one-on-one tutoring with your instructor. And a lot of students, for whatever reason, don't utilize office hours as much as they potentially could. I speak to many instructors, and a lot of us all agree that students just don't use office hours. And it's a shame, because you can speak to the instructor one-on-one and have a specific conversation about the course. Nobody knows more about the course than your instructor. So utilize the office hours. So I will post my office hours on the D2L announcements site. If those office hours don't work out for you, you can always set up a meeting by appointment. So meeting by appointment. And you might wonder, well, how do I contact the instructor to set that meeting up? Email me at mclark31@jccc.edu, or you can email me through D2L or whatever learning management system we're using. So often on the syllabus you'll find a course schedule. When are you going to have your unit exams? One of the key things is, will it change? So some instructors, I know in chemistry, have very detailed schedules, and they will even put what chapter and what section of each chapter they're going to lecture on each day that you meet. And sometimes that changes, so you need to make sure that you know what's going on if it does change. Things to think about, if there are snow days, your schedule is most likely going to change. If there are Royals parades because they won the World Series, that might be another reason why your schedule changes. So just be aware that the schedule is usually listed on the syllabus, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email your instructor or meet during your instructor's office hours, or even after class or before class are good times to snag your instructor. Also listed on the syllabus would be the required materials, optional materials. A good question to ask is the textbook required? Now, I'm old school. I like the textbook. I like books. I like to turn the pages. I'm not so much a fan of ebooks, but I understand that a lot of students are different and instructors are different. For chemistry courses and math courses, any science course, I agree. I definitely think that the textbook is an important part of your curriculum. For my course, the textbook is required. And even though I might not refer to it very much in the lectures, I do heavily assign homework problems from the textbook. And the nice thing about that is I do use those homework problems on quizzes. So it's important that you have the textbook and that you utilize the textbook. The Academic Achievement Center, which is AAC, Academic Achievement Center. This is a wonderful resource that students at JCCC have available to them. For this course, we work Academic Achievement Center because they help students learn how they learn. If you're not necessarily sure how to use your textbook, the Academic Achievement Center has courses or little mini tutoring sessions that you can sit down, meet with a tutor, and say, how do I use my textbook? How do I read my textbook? So this is in OCB 304. And if you're unsure of their hours, you can just go to the main college website and type in Academic Achievement Center. It will come up, and then on the right side you can click on hours. So the textbook, in my opinion, is very important for chemistry courses. The other question to ask is, are additional materials required? Especially for chemistry courses with a lab, you might need a lab coat. You might need goggles. You might need a lab notebook or manual that comes with for the course. So, are additional materials required? I think the sooner that you get materials required for a course, the better. And I know the lines at the bookstore can be long, but you can always, have them pack it for you and just come by and pick it up, so you don't have to wander around the bookstore. You still might have to wait in a line. So whatever semester you're in and taking whatever course, whether it's a science course, whether it's a math course, whether it's a humanities course, get your materials early. And I know the first week has a tendency to be kind of fluff and you don't feel like you're getting to anything, but having those materials makes it so much easier because pretty soon you're going to ramp up in that course. The other thing that might be noted on your syllabus is additional resources. Some instructors use D2L, others do not. So D2L or used or not. For our course, I do use D2L. This is where I post lectures. I also have some homework quizzes that you take through D2L, and I post your grades there. I know there are other chemistry instructors that require you to go to a different website. It's not D2L, but I'm sure the link is in D2L for online homework. So some of our instructors use Sapling or OWL. So after you take Chem100 and you go on to another chemistry course, be prepared. You might have to buy an access code. You might have to go to this website and work on your homework problems that way. Something that's very important with science courses is the attendance policy. What happens if you miss lecture? What happens if you miss lab? Now I know for our chemistry courses, whether it's Chem 122, which is Principles of Chemistry, or General Chemistry 1, which is Chem 124, if you miss more than 2 labs, you will receive a failing grade for that lab, for the course actually. So you really need to check with your instructor. So can result in a failing grade. So for some students, they don't realize this, and they might not, they have something going on, so they miss lab, and then a few weeks later, they miss lab again, and then they don't realize that they could fail the course because of missing lab. So I want to be sure that you're well informed, and hopefully you can be successful in your next chemistry course. The other thing that will be listed on your syllabus is what happens if you miss an exam. You know, I've had students have all sorts of things happen, car accidents, grandparents dying, maybe like 2 grandparents dying at the same time. No, I'm joking, but there are events that happen where you miss an exam. Contact your instructor and your syllabus so that you can figure out what to do. The next thing that will be listed on the syllabus, or one of the things that will be listed on the syllabus that's important for you to look at, is the grading. Look at the exam percentage. Why do I say this? I know from many of our courses, the exam percentage, it dictates a huge portion of your grade. Whether it's Principles of Chemistry, whether it's General Chemistry 1, whether it's this course, Chem 100, Preparation for Chemistry. So what you want to do is shoot for a grade that you want in the class on exams. Okay. So if you want an A in the course, you really need to shoot exams because they make up the majority of your course grade. If you're okay with a B, if you're okay with a C, then that's what you need to shoot for on your exams. It's going to be very difficult to get an A in the course if you consistently get D's on your exams. You know, after 1 D or 2 D's, it's going to be pretty challenging to get your grade up. So keep that in mind. For my courses, I use a lot of quizzes, and the quizzes only count 5% as opposed to 70% of your grade. So I'm trying to get you ready for the exam, and if you make a mistake on the quiz, it's not that big a portion of your grade. So be sure you understand the percentages, and if you don't, always ask your instructor. Okay, so grading is another thing to look at on the syllabus. Is the final, is it cumulative? Meaning, does it cover everything that you've learned all semester, or is it just the last unit that you worked on? For all of our chemistry courses, the final is cumulative. I know for other science courses, you might not have a cumulative final, or you might have the option of not taking the cumulative final if you have above a certain grade. But for chemistry, you have to take the cumulative final. And then extra credit. Now here's my stance on extra credit. I have many students who will do half the work and end up with a grade they don't want. And at the very end of the semester, they'll say, hey, is there any extra credit available? And I look at them and I think to myself, and I'll say this to them too, why didn't you do all the other 50% of assignments? instead of asking for extra credit. So usually asking for extra credit is going to put your instructor in a bad mood. One, I don't advise it. Two, there are some courses where extra credit is offered, but keep in mind, get your coursework done before you attempt any extra credit work. For whatever reason, there's just something so appealing about extra credit work as opposed to your regular work. But if you're doing all the other work and you're doing it to whatever grade satisfaction that you're looking for, then you won't necessarily need to use extra credit. So I know for Principles of Chemistry, we don't offer extra credit, and this is true because we have over 20 sections that are offered and we have to be consistent through all sections. But yeah, some courses do offer extra credit. Again, my advice is do your work first and then see if there's extra credit available. Use it cautiously because a lot of instructors shake their head and grind their teeth when you ask them about extra credit. Okay, assignments, homework. This will most likely be listed on the syllabus as well. One thing to ask is how are they collected? Is the homework online? Are late assignments accepted? Late penalty. I'm sorry. So for Chem100, I have a pretty strict policy. I don't accept late assignments. I don't have a late penalty because I don't accept late assignments. And I know to a lot of you that might seem harsh, especially for a preparation for chemistry course, but I want to get you accustomed to the fact that most chemistry instructors don't accept late assignments. And if they do, there's a tremendous late penalty. So in order to be successful in a chemistry course, you need to complete your assignments on time. And now I'm sure, if there was something just horrible that happened and you couldn't get one assignment in, but you turned everything else on time, I would give you one late. But as a rule, I do not accept late assignments because it just sets you up for the expectation that your instructor is always going to work with you and accept late assignments. I would love to work with you and be nice and everything, but I have to remember you are taking this course because you want to be successful in a chemistry course. Late assignments are not going to make you successful in a chemistry course. Okay, so to the next page. All right, become familiar with provided notes and textbook. So notes, do they follow along with the course outline? Are they PowerPoint? So are they PowerPoint? One thing that you can do, and now this also applies if your instructor posts lectures online, you can preview your notes ahead of time before you go to class. You might even be able to preview your notes and open your textbook and just kind of skim it. Because if you have never taken chemistry before, it's very foreign to you. And remember anything you learned how to do, whether it's riding a bike, whether it's learning how to write, whether it's learning how to do all these basic things that you are now proficient at, there was a time when it was hard. So everything is hard until it becomes easy. And that definitely applies to chemistry. A lot of my students expect to get chemistry immediately. It doesn't happen that way. One of the reasons I liked chemistry was because it's hard. It's challenging. It requires you to work, and all of a sudden you get it. So I always tell my students, I would love to bang my head against the wall for you. But me banging my head against the wall is not going to help you learn chemistry. So the more time you spend with the material, whether it's just skimming, or whether it's listening to a lecture while you're working out, but you're not taking notes, hearing it, seeing it, all these different ways that you can absorb this material is going to help you get it. And ultimately be successful. So preview your notes, lectures, cross-reference with textbook and desire to learn. Now the textbook, it is useful. It can be used for other things besides killing bugs. Read often, read ahead. I know I'm going to have an assignment on this for the Academic Achievement Center. So see Academic Achievement Center assignment. So read often, read ahead, ask questions in class. Okay, where are the homework problems? Sometimes homework problems in chemistry text can be throughout the chapter. Sometimes they can be at the end of the chapter, so you need to figure that out. All right, the other thing that textbooks have that's becoming more and more common are summary pages. Utilize the summary pages. The summary pages are kind of like a Cliff Note version of what the chapter was about. It can be very helpful, especially if you're kind of short on time. For me, I learn through writing and rewriting. My husband, he learns just by reading. If he sees it written down, he can remember it. But I don't remember it unless I'm actively doing something, either talking about it or writing something. So one thing you can do, which is very helpful with your textbook, is to recopy the summary page. And I know it seems crazy because everybody uses their phone and they type things and they send emails and they do memos on their phones. But there is something to be said for putting this pen or pencil to paper, writing it, taking the time, looking at it, going back and forth. So you learn a lot that way. And figuring out your learning style is important. Okay, take meaningful notes in class. When the instructor is writing anything on the board, the document camera, whatever it may be, if they are writing, it's because it's important. So you need to write down whatever the instructor writes down. Another thing, if the instructor repeats something several times, write it down. One thing that helps you make the most of time in class, preview, notes, and textbook. And review your notes within 24 hours of taking them. For science or math classes, look over solved problems in the notes before attempting homework. Okay. Become familiar with operation of a non-graphing calculator for basic mathematical operations. Very few chemistry instructors will allow a graphing calculator. So I highly recommend the Texas Instruments TI 30X2S. It is a great little calculator. It's a great calculator for those who are familiar with graphing calculators. It has 2-line display, so you can see what you're entering. And I'm sorry I don't have mine right now, because I would show it to you. So if you don't have one of these calculators, buy one. They're usually anywhere from $8 to $12. Target, Walmart, the bookstore, all these places have them. Get one, get it now, because on the exam, any chemistry exam, you're not going to be able to use a graphing calculator. So it's better to practice on that calculator while you're doing your homework, as opposed to not using it at all, using your graphing calculator, and then when you get to the exam, you freak out because you don't know where the equals button is. Enter operations on your calculator at least 2 times. Just in case you entered something incorrectly, make sure you get the same answer. Practice homework on allowed calculator. So these are just practice problems at the bottom where you can enter these on your calculator. Enter them 2 times. Make sure that you get the same answer. Okay. And lastly, when you're in class, it's important to establish a professional relationship with the instructor and communicate difficulties appropriately. Raise your hand during lecture if you have a question. Some instructors like to finish their train of thought before you ask a question. And so, for instance, if you're in my class and you raise your hand and I'm just finishing something up, I'll say, hold on a second, I'll get you. And then I'll remember to ask your question, have you ask your question. Generally, if you just blurt out questions without raising your hand, it can be offensive to other classmates and your instructor. So raise your hand during lecture if you have a question. Sometimes this happens to me. I'd say it happens to me more in lab, but sometimes it happens to me in lecture too. Don't interrupt when an instructor is working with another student. Just wait until they're done. Try to be conscientious. Common courtesies go a long way in life. Please, thank you. Excuse me, when you have a chance, can you help me with this? It just makes things go a lot smoother for you and your instructor, and also you and your fellow classmates. So it's amazing how much easier things go when you're polite. I think when you're concerned about your course grade, I know a lot of students get into this situation, they're so anxious about their course grade and doing well in this chemistry course, because if they don't pass this chemistry course, then they can't go on to do whatever they wanted to do. And if they don't do this, their parents are going to be so mad at them, and pretty soon your whole life snowballs, and it's just, you're going to be living in a van down by the river. I know, I used to do this too. But don't let that freak you out. Stay calm. If you're working with your instructor, try to be polite. How do you do this? Just try to keep cool, keep calm. Another thing, ask personal questions during office hours or after class. There's a better time and place than raising your hand during class and saying, I have such and such health condition that prevents me from, just ask after class or during office hours. Complicated questions. I have some students who will send me little books, little novellas of questions, an email. And it's challenging to respond to these via email. I do my best. But sometimes it's easier to communicate with your instructor face-to-face. Unfortunately, for this course, we will meet once a week, so you'll see me each week. So I recommend complicated questions, don't email. Ask in person. If you have trouble remembering what your questions are, hey, it happens to all of us, buy a packet of Post-it notes and keep them with your homework. Write down all the questions that you have. I've had some students who were extremely organized, and they would have their Post-it note filled out with questions, and they would just go through each one. Okay, 11.24, 11.35. Why was it this way? I didn't get this. And if they didn't have that Post-it note, they were lost without it. Because the same student would come in and she's like, oh, I forgot my Post-it note. I don't know what question to ask you. So it's a very good way to keep track of your questions. Okay, email responses from instructors may vary. I'll put email response time. Maybe that's a better way to say it. I know some instructors who really prefer not to use email. I prefer email. I usually try to respond to my email within 24 hours. This is in 24 business hours. Me within 24 business hours. So if you email me Friday night at 7 p.m., you won't get a response back until Monday. The latest will be Monday at 7 p.m. That's what I'm saying. So, but I try to respond as quickly as I can. But I know some instructors don't have the 24-hour policy, and some instructors might take as much as a week. So sometimes it might be best to just ask them in class. Other instructors, like I said, prefer not to use email. So it just depends on your instructor, and that's something that you can figure out in the syllabus. So best way to contact the instructor, refer to your syllabus, or ask them when you're in class. Chances are you're not the only student with a question. So it's just kind of my tips for being successful in any course. Oh, I have one more thing. And this is important. I said common courtesies go a long way. Definitely, this speaks to that. Be conscientious of fellow students and conduct yourself in accordance with the student code of conduct. When you're in class, don't sit at the back and talk with your other classmates, your best friend. Catch up on what you did this weekend and where you went and what bars you went to or didn't go to or who you hung out with or how the Royals are doing or the Chiefs. No, that is not the time to do it in class because it is very distracting to your fellow students and also to your instructor. And it's, again, does not follow the student code of conduct. So if you do it enough, you could potentially get kicked out of class. So it's not what you want to do. So, I have some students who will talk occasionally. I'll say, hey, can you keep it down? And they comply, no problem. But be aware of that. Limit your use of your phone. If you need to take a phone call, don't take it during class. Step outside. I know everybody has different home. Maybe you have somebody needs to get in contact with you. But just try to be respectful. And this is from the Student Code of Conduct. No student shall behave in a manner that is materially disruptive to the learning environment or that endangers or infringes upon the rights and or safety of themselves or other students or staff. Any obstruction or disruption of an educational process, administrative process, or other college function is prohibited. It is the responsibility of all students to cooperate fully with the officers from the JCCC Police Department, including providing valid identification upon request. So hopefully it never gets to that level. But I will say, if there's a student doing something, whether it's in the hallway, whether it's in your class, a different class, you need to let somebody know so that this disruptive behavior is no longer. So, okay, I think I'm done with my tips for being successful in a course. The next lecture will start up on using scientific notation. So, bye-bye. I'll see you next time.